Imagine a man who believed he was the digital messiah of finance until $40 billion evaporated in 3 days. He sat on his Twitter throne typing, "Steady lads," while the life savings of thousands of families turned into dust. The arrogance was so incredibly thick you could slice it while a supposedly stable coin decided to head towards zero. Most regular people lose their house keys, but this absolute legend managed to lose a top 10 global cryptocurrency overnight. Welcome to All In Bro channel. Today we are dissecting the spectacular, ego-fueled dumpster fire that was the Luna collapse. It starts with a guy named Do Kwon, who treated the global financial system like his own personal ego playground. He promised a mathematical utopia where money grew on trees and the laws of gravity simply did not apply anymore. To understand this madness, we have to look at how a stablecoin backed by nothing but vibes managed to explode. The math looked like magic until the curtain was pulled back and everyone realized the magician was actually a fraud. Thousands of people thought they were getting rich while they were actually just funding a giant game of musical chairs. When the music stopped, there were no chairs left, and the only person with a parachute was the guy fleeing. Was it a genius experiment gone wrong, or just another classic Ponzi scheme wrapped in very shiny new digital packaging? Everyone was warned about the structural flaws, but Do Kwon responded by calling his critics poor and very incredibly stupid. There is a special kind of irony in watching a billionaire insult everyone right before he becomes a common fugitive. The scale of this disaster is hard to grasp unless you realize it wiped out more wealth than many wars. We are talking about a total systemic failure that sent shockwaves through every corner of the global crypto market space. It was the Titanic of crypto, but instead of an iceberg, it hit the simple reality of basic supply-demand. People lost their homes, their hope, and their sanity, while the mastermind behind it all was busy tweeting spicy memes. This is not just a story about numbers. It is a story about the ultimate hubris of a tech bro. How does a single man convince the entire world that he has solved the fundamental problem of modern global finance? The answer involves a lot of technical jargon designed to make you feel like you are just not smart enough. If you cannot explain how the yield is generated, you are probably the actual yield for someone else much smarter. We are going to peel back the layers of this rotten onion and see what actually happened behind the screens. Prepare your drinks and your patience, because this tale of greed and stupidity is going to get very dark quickly. This is the beginning of the end for the man who thought he could outrun the laws of basic economics. Do Kwon was a Stanford graduate with a resume that screamed prestige and a personality that screamed massive insecurity issues. He started out at Microsoft and Apple before deciding that building software for others was far beneath his grand vision. The guy had the classic founder look with the fleece vest and the unearned confidence of 1,000 burning suns. Before he was a fugitive, he was the king of South Korean tech and the darling of every major venture capitalist. He co-founded Terraform Labs in 2018 with a mission to create a decentralized payment system for the masses. The early days were filled with hype about the Chai app, which supposedly processed millions of real-world retail transactions. Investors saw a young visionary who spoke with the speed of a machine gun and the arrogance of a god. He built a cult following known as the Lunatics, who worshipped his every tweet and attacked anyone who dared question. Do Kwon cultivated an image of a fearless leader who was 10 steps ahead of the boring old traditional bankers. He portrayed himself as a disruptor who was finally bringing the power of the blockchain to the average, everyday person. The mask was perfect because it combined high-level technical competence with a populist message that resonated with many people. Everyone wanted to believe in the kid who was going to fix the broken financial system with a few algorithms. He wasn't just selling a coin, he was selling a ticket to a future where the banks had no power. The setup was brilliant because it leveraged the deep distrust people had for the existing financial institutions after the crash. Major firms like Sequoia and Binance poured millions into his vision, thinking they had found the next big financial genius. Do Kwon spent his time tweeting insults at economists and calling everyone who disagreed with him a literal poor person. The good guy mask was firmly in place as he promised 20% returns on a supposedly stable digital asset. Nobody asked where the money was coming from because the price of Luna was going straight to the moon daily. He was the hero of the retail investor. the man who was going to make every single person a millionaire. The reality was that he was building a house of cards on top of a very active and dangerous volcano. But in 2021, he was untouchable, and the world was his oyster while he mocked the entire planet. He walked with a swagger that suggested he had cracked the code of the universe and conquered the financial world. The media loved him because he was loud and provocative, and always ready to give a very spicy headline quote. Behind the scenes, the system was already starting to show tiny cracks that would soon become massive, gaping wide holes. Stay tuned as we dive into the actual mechanics of the scam that fooled the smartest people in the room. To understand this madness, you have to look at the two-headed monster called Terra USD and the Luna token. UST was supposed to stay at $1 because it was an algorithmic stablecoin backed by absolutely nothing but math. If UST went above $1, you burned Luna to make more UST, and if it fell, you did the opposite. It was a self-balancing act that worked perfectly as long as people actually wanted to hold the Luna token. But Do Kwon needed a reason for people to buy his magic internet beans, so he created the Anchor protocol. Anchor was basically a giant digital bank that promised everyone a guaranteed 20% annual return on their stable UST. Imagine a bank offering 20% interest while the rest of the world was struggling to give you 1%. It was the ultimate siren song for every greedy investor who thought they had found a literal infinite money glitch. The problem was that there was no actual business model generating that 20% real yield for all those billions. Do Kwon was paying old investors with the money from new investors, which is the literal definition of a Ponzi. He called it the yield reserve, but it was really just a massive pile of cash that was burning away. As long as more money flowed in, the party kept going, and the lunatics kept singing their leaders' high praises. To make things even more ridiculous, he started buying Bitcoin to back the peg like a digital gold reserve fund. This created a massive systemic risk, because if the market crashed, the reserve would lose its value exactly when needed. It was like trying to put out a fire with a bucket of gasoline while claiming you are a genius. The smart money started seeing the flaws in the algorithm, and they prepared to bet against the entire fragile house. If UST fell below $1 and people panicked, they would start burning UST to mint massive amounts of Luna. This would flood the market with Luna, causing its price to crash, which would then make the peg even weaker. It is called a death spiral because once it starts, there is almost no way to stop the downward momentum. Do Kwon laughed at the idea of a death spiral and told everyone that he had a very secret plan. His secret plan was apparently just to tweet insults and hope that the market would stop selling his worthless coins. He was playing a high-stakes game of chicken with the entire global economy, using other people's life savings now. The complexity of the system was just a smokescreen to hide the fact that the math simply didn't work. When you build a financial system on top of a recursive loop, you are just waiting for a total collapse. The trap was set, and the world was about to watch $40 billion vanish into the digital cold ether. Why did it succeed? Because humans are hardwired to be incredibly greedy and ignore every single red flag for money. Everyone saw their neighbor getting rich on magic internet money and decided that common sense was just a total distraction. The 20% yield was a giant neon sign saying, "Scam," but people saw it as a life-changing opportunity. Investors ignored the basic law that says high returns always come with high risk because they wanted the free lunch. Do Kwon's hubris was the catalyst, because he truly believed his own hype and thought he was smarter than math. He spent his time mocking billionaires and experts while his own foundation was bleeding out cash to maintain the peg. The collapse happened because the math didn't math, and the market finally decided to test his very fragile house. In May 2022, a massive sell order hit the market, and the stablecoin started losing its dollar value. Panic spread like wildfire as investors realized that the exit door was way too small for the massive crowd inside. Do Kwon tweeted, "Deploying more capital," like a general sending his last few soldiers into a literal meat grinder today. The Luna Foundation Guard dumped their Bitcoin reserves to save the peg, but it was like throwing pebbles at tanks. The algorithm began its hyperinflationary death spiral, printing trillions of new Luna tokens into a market with zero actual buyers. In just 72 hours, the price of Luna went from $80 to a fraction of a single penny. It was a total wipeout of $40 billion in market cap, while the world watched in horror and complete disbelief. The genius inventor was silent as his followers watched their life savings disappear into the dark digital void of crypto. His arrogance was his undoing, because he refused to listen to anyone who tried to point out the structural flaws. He thought he could outplay the market, but the market is a cold machine that doesn't care about your ego. Every decision he made during the crisis was a desperate attempt to fix a fundamental error that was truly unfixable. He prioritized the survival of his own image over the financial safety of the millions of people who trusted him. The failure was inevitable because you cannot create value out of thin air without eventually paying a very steep price. It was the ultimate case of fake it until you make it, except he never actually managed to make it. The specific bad decisions included buying Bitcoin at the top and then being forced to sell it at the bottom. It was a masterclass in how to destroy a global financial empire in less time than it takes to vacation. The math didn't fail. The system worked exactly as it was designed to work, which is the truly scary part. Now we must look at the wreckage and see where the man of the hour decided to hide his face. Do Kwon is currently sitting in a cold jail cell wearing a very bright yellow prison jumpsuit right now today. He was sentenced to 15 long years in federal prison just last month in December of 2020. 5 years. The judge described his entire operation as a fraud on an epic and truly massive generational scale. For everyone now, he was ordered to forfeit $19 million, which is basically just pocket change compared to the total loss overall. After the American government is finished with him, South Korea is waiting to give him 30 more long years then. He went from a billion-dollar luxury penthouse to a tiny room with a shared toilet and no Wi-Fi access. His loyal, steady lads are still waiting for a recovery that is mathematically impossible and will never, ever happen today. The most painful lesson here is that if a yield sounds too good to be true, it most definitely is. Basic math does not care about your feelings or your fancy fleece vest or your Twitter followers at all now. Every single time you follow a charismatic tech bro blindly, you are literally asking for a world of pain. Being a lunatic was never a badge of honor. It was actually just a very sad and clinical diagnosis indeed. Never trust anyone who calls you poor just for asking a very basic question about their financial business model today. The crypto market is a dangerous jungle where the biggest predators usually wear very expensive and stylish hoodies. Right now, please use your actual brain before you use your digital wallet, or you will surely lose both very quickly indeed. If you cannot explain the logic of the trade, you are the one being liquidated by the market makers now. Greed is a very powerful drug that makes incredibly smart people act very stupidly and lose everything they own today. Take a long, hard look at your current portfolio and ask yourself if it is built on solid ground tonight. Do Kwon is now just another ghost in a vast graveyard full of failed and highly arrogant digital geniuses today. Tomorrow, there will definitely be another guy promising you the moon and the stars for your hard-earned cash now. Just try to remember that the moon is actually a very cold and very dead place for most regular people. Keep your eyes wide open and your expectations low if you want to survive this wild and crazy market today. Subscribe to this channel immediately if you want to keep your hard-earned money and your mental sanity too now. Smashing that like button is the only guaranteed high-yield investment that you will ever find on the internet today. Stay cynical, stay skeptical, and for the love of God, stay far away from the next big magic project now. See you in the next episode, when another billionaire decides to self-destruct and lose $40 billion again today.